All right, we are live. Welcome to episode 2 of Dad, Dave, and the Elephant. Let's go through some intros, who we are. We start with Dad.
Hey, Dad here.
And I'm Dave from To the Table. And who do we have? The last one coming up, the other Tim.
Hello, everybody. This is Tim Norris, aka Greyelephant with Greyelephant Gaming, and I am enjoying a nice dragon's milk as I speak to my good friends. So don't be surprised if I don't get a little weird throughout this show.
You're weird anyways. So
I was going to say, there's not going to be any change there.
Right, right. So anyways, tonight's topic, we got a couple things that we're going to be moving into in a little bit. As you saw in the notes, we're going to be talking about ghosting at the 50th anniversary of Gen Con, and then we're going to be talking about Yamatai a little bit later on. But before we get into that, let's quickly hit on the games that we've been playing the past couple weeks. So we'll start with Dad.
Alrighty, so I've got 3 I want to talk about today. One was an Origins release from WizKids called Fantasy Realms, not to be confused with Star Realms, Hero Realms, any other realms that you may think of, Cthulhu Realms. Doesn't play like that at all. It's really a game about combos, getting cards in your hand, creating combos that give you points if you have this card, or points if you don't have this other card. Going over really well with my group. Another game I've got that I bought at Origins was Wyatt Earp. This is kind of a mystery rummy type of game set in the Old West. So if you know how to play rummy, you'll know how to play this. If you like the Old West, I think you're going to like this. Again, this is another hit with my lunch crowd. And then finally, a game that I don't have is a game called Dark Deeds. And I don't know, have either of you guys heard of that game before?
I've heard of it. I actually have it. I haven't had a chance to play it. It's on the wall of shame, I guess.
Okay. So a buddy of mine has it, and he brought it in. We've played it a few times now. It's okay. It's a little bit more luck of the roll than what I would typically like. And the price point was pretty high. I mean, the components are pretty good, but, I mean, it's a pretty small box. I mean, the box itself is really not much bigger than this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like $54, I think is what he said he paid for it. So a little steep. Yeah, I'd play it again if I didn't have any other options, but I'd probably rather play something else. So that's my 3.
All right, so some of the stuff that I've been playing, 'cause I usually play once a week on Fridays. So I know that we've played a couple of Ticket to Ride maps, played Heart of Africa. That's probably one of my favorite ones. I really like that one. We keep going back to it. Our group, most of us all have almost everything for it. And then this past Friday, I got a chance to play the Pennsylvania map from that UK expansion, and I had a lot of fun with that one. Certainly gives you a lot of options, you know, with choosing your routes, because sometimes you may go a different way just because you want to get the stock certificates. Got a chance to play Sentient, which was came out at Origins from Renegade Game Studios, and that was a big hit with our group. It's the same designer, Alex Kevern, who did World's Fair, and very, very similar feel about the things that you're doing and trying to make decisions to either manipulate dice or collect sets, and the way that you're placing things on the board. It really, it's almost like 2 different games in one, how you're managing yourself, and that went over really, really well. And we got a chance to play Dice Forge. That was an interesting game, and I think that we're going to be touching on that one in a future episode. So that was fun. I like the dice crafting. It's very light. It plays very, very quick. So those were probably the 3 major ones that we've been playing. How about you, Mr. Elephant?
Yeah, the Dice Forge is a lot of fun, but yeah, I don't want to get into that one because, like you said, we're going to talk about that here soon. So we had 3 videos we just recently released, so obviously those are the 3 games I've been playing. 2 of them released today, one of them Legendary Creatures, which is up on Kickstarter today. Neat, cool game about becoming a druid, and you're having to you're an apprentice, you're getting these creatures, and you're having to manipulate them to be able to move up and try to gain prestige points. Really neat game. I recommend you checking that one out. Tasty Minstrels rocking and rolling right now with Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. Another really cool game with a rondelle board where you have to take your cubes, move them around, much like Trojan. You can upgrade your character board. You move your knights around, and of course, you're conquering the heathens because you want God to love you. Last but not least would be the Mario Monopoly Gamer, which is getting, for some reason, some hate. It's a love-hate one, you know? People talk about it, so other people have to hate it, and I don't understand. A lot of fun. It's not your grandfather's Monopoly. It's a cool twist on the Monopoly game. One I really recommend you try out if you get a chance. So that's what we've been up to.
Awesome. And to all of our viewers out there, you know, just post in the comments some of the stuff that you guys have been playing. Be curious to see what's hitting tables around the world, actually, because of this. So, all right, we're going to move into ghosting at Gen Con this coming year. Big news was that the 4-day badges are sold out. Unfortunately, Gen Con never released how many 4-day badges were actually sold. So there's a little bit of a mystery as to where they decided to put the cap at. And there was just another press email that came out that the Saturday-only badges are almost sold out. And so that spurred a topic that was buzzing around on social media, and I know that on my channel, one of my contributors, Mindy Basie, did an article on it, and it's about this ghosting, which I never even heard of that term before. Have you guys heard of that at all?
Not until Tim said it.
Not until everybody decided to get butthurt over it. So I
Yes.
think everybody already knows where my stance is.
Yeah. So anyway, so I guess ghosting is like, I guess they're saying people are planning on showing up at the convention without a badge, and it spurred a whole bunch of different conversations and topics and stuff. So we're going to just give our own thoughts on that for a little bit and kind of have a dialogue. So I'm going to start with Tim the Dad and see what he has to say on this topic. Like, what do you know about it? What have you heard? And then what are your feelings on it? What are your predictions for this?
Well, this is one that, like I said, I've never heard of this term before. I saw Tim had posted something about it, and I read his post, so that was my first exposure to it. My thoughts on it, I don't know. People want to go to where other gamers are going to be at, and they want a game. I'm cool with that. I know some of the feedback I think Tim got was that they were concerned with it being the 50th anniversary of Gen Con, and it's going to be, you know, jam-packed already. Do they really want other people walking through the halls that are just kind of taking up space kind of way? I don't know. I don't have an issue with it. Gen Con is always going to be packed. There's you know, I don't know the number of people that are actually going to be doing this, but I would think that they would probably be somewhere playing games, and I don't think they're going to be just walking up and down the halls. There's really nothing to see in the halls, so I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. What do you guys think?
Well, let me chime in here, and then we'll hear from Tim the Elephant. So when I read the term about ghosting, it just made me think of how many people show up at like concerts and stuff and don't have tickets on the outside. Maybe they're hoping to get something or whatever. Or I will agree with you, Tim Bresnan, that the people want to be where the action is at. Now, the thing is, how many people are actually going to make a trip to come to Indianapolis without a badge and most likely don't have a place to stay? And if they are going to do this last minute, the housing is all sold out, and you're going to be buying you, and without a badge, you couldn't even go through the housing portal. So you're going to be paying through the nose for a hotel room, and I really don't think that people are going to want to sleep in their car. So I think that there's like this big thing, ooh, it's sold out, and all these people are going to show up. You know, last year they talked about, you know, it was a record attendance. There was a lot of people there, and maybe there was. I didn't really feel it was much more crowded than it was the year before, because now they've expanded where the convention takes place. They moved a lot of stuff down to Lucas Oil Stadium. So like a lot of the cosplay and all that stuff and True Dungeon all moved down the street. And so it freed up some space there. And I think that if people are going to be playing games, you see more and more stuff happening in the hotel lobbies from all the adjoining hotels. So I don't really think if people are going to do this ghosting, I don't really think they're going to be in the convention hall itself. I think you're going to see maybe more people hanging out outside, maybe where the food trucks are, just want to be part of the action. Or they're going to be wandering around the lobbies of the hotels, maybe looking for a pickup game or just to see what's going on. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I figured they're probably going to try to find some. I don't know if there's any empty rooms over at the convention center, but I could see them going over there, trying to find an open room and, meeting up with their buddies who do have tickets to get in. Yeah, I still don't think it's going to be that big of an issue.
Right. All right, Tim, Elephant.
You just said something, Dad, that I want to write down. So you said, just real quick, that they're going to hook up with their friends who do have a ticket. And that's a great point, because I want to make sure we address this, that the tickets are limited. Tickets are expensive. Not everybody really cares to get into the exhibit hall in the first place. They want to be, just like what you said, around other gamers. They want to be in the atmosphere of it. So if one of your friends does buy the ticket to go in to get maybe the latest, greatest 2-3 games so that they can bring that out after they purchased it and you guys can play somewhere, what's the harm in that? That's happened every year. You guys have always seen it. It's not going to be any different this year than it has been in any previous years. Another thing you said, Dad, was that you said there's nothing to see in the hallways, and I have to disagree with you on that. There's 2 big things you always see in the hallways. Well, 3 if you want to be technical. Well, that's where we get our food, is in the hallways. But we see our friends in the hallways, and that's where typically all the cosplayers will hang out, in the hallways. And they have done that for every year, and this year will be no different than any other year in the past, that everybody's going to get dressed up with their cosplay outfits, and they're going to stand around and they're going to get pictures done. And some people look forward to just that for Gen Con. They don't really care necessarily about the gaming. So are we now going to come up with a new little label for those types of people? Because it seems like we have to label people that don't have badges ghosts. So do we have to now degrade people who come just to cosplay and show off their outfits? It always seems like we have to come up with some way to become, to think a derogatory comment towards people who are, not gamers like we are. Dave, you mentioned a comment too, and you said that about kicking people out. That I related it to kind of like a sporting event. So if let's say, like, I live in Indianapolis, so let's say the Colts have a big playoff game, and if they win this playoff game, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And I don't have a ticket because tickets cost, $1,500. But I want to be around other sport fanatics, people who are just huge fans of the team. So I decided to drive downtown in my truck. I drop my tailgate, I pull out my barbecue, and I just start grilling right there, and we're tossing around the football, drinking beers. We got a TV that we brought with us that we're going to watch the game on, and we're grilling right there in the parking lot. Am I ghosting because I didn't buy a ticket to go into the stadium to actually sit down, but I'm taking up a parking spot? I mean, I'm taking up space. It's the same concept. There's no issue with this. Once again, like what Dad said, we just want to be around other like-minded people to be able to enjoy ourselves. There's nothing wrong with this. So I do have more on this subject, but I thought I would digress for now and see what you guys had to say.
Well, talking about the cosplayers, yeah, you're right. They're always in the hallways. I'm not there really to look at or interact with the cosplayers. That being said, I have got no issue with them being there. The only issue I have is the people that come up and want pictures right in the middle of the hall, or right in the middle of the hallway. So I would just prefer, if they want pictures, just kind of move off to the side. But you're right. Cosplayers have been there ever since I've been going to Gen Con, and they're not going to just stop going just because they're not going in for the gaming part. I got no issue with that.
Yeah, and I don't really have an issue either, because I saw some people were saying that, people are going to try and sneak in, and I'll tell you what, regardless of how crowded it is, the security there does a pretty good job of monitoring and looking at badges. The only time maybe it's going to be crazy is the first day when the gates open and everybody's walking through, and it's all going to be almost impossible to check every single badge. But they do want you to hold them up when you're walking in. So like I said, I just think, and I will agree, talk back to, like what Tim said, people want to be around other gamers, other people that enjoy this hobby. And, Tim, the elephant, you said, you made a good point about, going down to like the playoff game, because we had the same thing here last year when the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series, and people were going down to Wrigley Field and surrounding the park. They were outside, didn't have a ticket. Nobody was calling them ghosts. They were just fans that wanted to be down there. And like I said before, it's just like the same thing with people showing up maybe at concerts or whatever. They don't have tickets. Maybe they can get one. Sometimes they may hang out in the parking lot, hear a song or something like that. They're really not, to me, they're not posing a safety issue or anything like that. I just think that somebody decided to come up with this buzzword just to get some stuff stirred up and something for us to talk about.
Do we even know where the term originated?
No, because I even looked it up. I looked up what ghosting was, and even like on Urban Dictionary, and their definition of ghosting was basically if you were in a relationship with somebody and you just disappeared, you left the relationship without any communication. It's kind of like silent dumping somebody. It's like you're together and all of a sudden you're gone. And they said, oh, they just ghosted them.
So you brought up a comment, Dave. You said that the security does a pretty decent job. So let's focus on that for a minute. So we've already got paid security that's patrolling the exhibit hall inside out. They're checking badges. They're doing their thing. Before it even comes to that point, we've already got people who are getting paid. We have a Gen Con panel that's been set up. On top of that, we've also got the local fire marshal who's saying, this is how many people, this is the capacity that this place can hold in order it to, to still remain within safety standards. If we ever eclipse that, then we could possibly be talking about a problem. But until we get to that point, let's just rely upon the professionals and allow them to do their jobs and allow them to dictate how many people are allowed to come in and out with or without a badge. Now, when we're talking about the exhibit hall, if you feel the need, if you see somebody without a badge and you feel the need to report them, hey man, that's your business. I'm not necessarily going to be wasting my time staring around and making sure everybody that around me has a badge displayed, or the correct badge, because I mean, let's face it, they could be using an old badge. The point that I'm making is that if you're going to go around, give people the stink eye, and you're going to try to make some sort of a stand, that you're going to go on a crusade, that you're going to point these people out and make sure that they get thrown out of the convention, you better darn well be sure when you point them out that you're right in what you're saying. Otherwise, you're just going to make yourself look foolish. So I just think a lot of this just comes down to just relaxing and just accepting the fact that, look, the hobby is growing, and as it grows, we're just going to have to adapt to that.
Yeah, now you made a point with the fire marshal, and that's kind of an interesting thing, because I would think that if the fire marshal were to show up and observe and they thought that it was too crowded, we all know that the almighty voice over the PA will come on, and they could order people to leave the exhibit hall. They could turn the lights off as if the hall was closing, like on the last day. They have, any convention center has a protocol in place for that stuff. We shouldn't have to worry about it. Plus, even let's say, for example, they capped this year at 70,000 badges, which was pretty, last year there was 60-some thousand people there. So let's say it was 70,000. Honestly, how many people are all in the same spot at the same time? They're not, because there's so much different things going on that I really don't think that you probably won't even notice the stuff that's going on.
Now, how much extra space that is not being used is there at the convention center? Is it pretty much all taken up now?
Well, we have the big, huge main halls are pretty much all being used, and I'm not 100% sure with like all the meeting rooms, because it's like if you've ever been in any kind of convention center, They obviously have the big, huge main halls where a lot of times there will be vendors or exhibits depending upon the type of convention. I've done several trade shows for part of my job at McCormick Place, which is one of the largest convention centers in the country. And there's meeting rooms all over that they use. And so, most of those are being used. And I also saw, like, on a lot of the events, that there's things going on in the hotels that are surrounding there. They have events there. A lot of the role-playing events are going on in some of the other hotels. In fact, the BGG Hot Games room is across the street at the Hyatt Regency. It's not even that you have to walk to that one. It's not even adjacent to the hall. So the space is being filled. Obviously, when they moved the things down to the Lucas Oil Stadium, this is just my opinion. True Dungeon, I think, takes up a bunch of space, and a lot of the cosplaying, or I think they call it LARPing, the live action role playing, that stuff was going on in some of the hotels, and I think that they moved a lot of that stuff down there just to facilitate more people to be able to do that. And when those people that are part of that hobby go down there, it removes themselves from the people that are there specifically for the board games. So, but obviously there's a lot of space that's down there. If the building is being used to the maximum capacity, we still have opportunities, I think, to use more of the space in the meeting rooms at the adjoining hotels. That's just my observation.
Yeah, the only problem is the whoever is, if it's Gen Con or if it's somebody else, then they're going to have to pay rent on that room. And I know that they'll have to do that too at the convention center. But I just didn't know if there was, a lot of extra rooms that are open at the convention center that they could just open up for open gaming. You don't even need to have a staff person there or anything. Just have it open, and anybody that wants to ghost can, meet up with their friends, and play games in there if they're worried about, more congestion.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The only thing that I do know when you're talking about open rooms, and this is a little slightly off topic, but this year, Gen Con is actually having a quiet room where people can go in, where it's just a spot for them to decompress, get away from the noise and all the other stuff. So they're specifically having a quiet room set aside, which I think is nice. I think that that's good. Some people, after a while, you get stimulus overload. And if you're a person who drove into the event all day, and you're not going to leave, there's nowhere for you to go unless you go in your car and you go back to your hotel. Then you got to try and drive back in and find parking. I think that that's a nice option for people to take a break. But I don't know about if people are specifically going to facilitate, basically, if you want to call them, like, people walking in off the street. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Tim the Elephant?
I don't know. I mean, I think that there's always the room to grow, and every year it seems like I have to hear this same discussion that, oh, Indianapolis is too small, they can't handle Gen Con, and look, man, we handle the Super Bowl. Trust me, we can handle Gen Con just fine. There will be always room, but like Dad said, that room has to be paid for, so it's not just something that comes for free. So you got to keep that in mind, and until the panel decides it's worthwhile to open up and extend and create more space, they're not going to do it. So maybe this is the year where maybe next year that they'll look to try to expand a little bit more. I just think that people are always just trying to find a reason to complain every year it comes to Gen Con about, of course everybody wants it in their backyard, I guess.
Well, kind of for us three, it's very close, and for you, it's extremely close.
Yeah, I'm 20 minutes away. I'm spoiled.
Well, we kind of are too, because for me to go to Origins, Gen Con is half the distance, so it's obviously more convenient for me.
But it's growing, and that's the thing. I mean, that no matter what anybody has to say, look, if Gen Con wasn't a place that people wanted to be, then people wouldn't show. But it is growing. It's continuously growing. And until Indianapolis feels like they can't do it, and look, I believe they're locked in until 2020 anyways, you're just going to have to accept it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Are you with us still, Dave?
I think we lost Dave.
I think we lost Dave.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I was having I couldn't hear you guys for some reason. Yeah, are you guys see me?
Yeah,
Yep.
we were talking bad words about you the entire time, so it's a
Oh,
good thing that you weren't listening.
I accidentally muted my earphones. I couldn't hear anything.
So all I was saying was that it just seems like every year people are trying to find a reason to complain that Gen Con in Indianapolis is not big enough to handle, and it always needs. Of course, everybody on the West Coast thinks it needs to go to the West Coast. Everybody on the East Coast thinks it needs to go to the East Coast. But look, it's stuck here till 2020. It's just going to stick. That's the way it's going to be. After that, yeah, we'll see what happens. But to be honest with you, when Indianapolis has been able to hold a Super Bowl and was able to contain all those people, Gen Con still isn't quite the issue.
Right, I agree with that. So, I think we've probably talked enough about ghosting. If you guys have any comments, whatever, feel free to post in the video comments below. Would love to hear what you guys have to say on that topic. It is definitely something that has created quite a bit of buzz. And so what we're going to do is move into our other segment that we're going to be talking about. It's a group review for Yamatai, which is the latest release from Days of Wonder, designer Bruno Cathala, and another guy named Mark Pakian, or I don't know how you say his name, but he has no other games to his credit that I know of. But we've all had a chance to play this game. We're not going to go over the rules. If you guys want to figure out how the game is played, there's plenty of other videos that are out there. Check our own individual channels. We'll have stuff that's going to be going on with that as well. But we're just going to talk about our impressions and any issues that we have. And we're just going to talk about the game. So we're going to start with Tim the Dad.
All right. So first off, let me just say that I've played this game twice now. Both have been two-player only. If you like Five Tribes, this feels a lot Five Tribes-like, because one of the things you're trying to not do is make a move that is going to allow your opponents to do something better, or basically take what you're trying to set up. I think in a two-player game, you're playing basically two turns instead of just one that you would in a three or four-player game. So my very first play of it burned my brain because I was looking at trying to set up multiple turns. I'm doing something on my first turn that I can take advantage of my second turn. Because one of the things you're going to be doing is clearing off islands that have culture tokens on them, so that you can build buildings. And you don't want to clear an island that your opponent's going to be able to come in and build their buildings on there, and you're not going to see any benefit. So what I found in the two-player game is that gets pretty cutthroat, because you're setting yourself up, and you're trying to make sure that the guy that's going to take two turns next, that you're not setting him up for some type of epic move. Visually, the game is stunning, I think. A lot of colors. The components are really well done. The artwork, I think, is phenomenal. Probably one of the best looking games I've ever seen. It's Days of Wonder, so you kind of expect that. Overall, I've really enjoyed playing it. The first game that we played took us probably a little over 2 hours, because we were kind of going through the rules, making sure we were doing things right, learning kind of the strategies, things that we needed to do, things we needed not to do. So I felt pretty exhausted after that first game. I liked it, but I didn't know how much I liked it at that point. Second game, which was several days later, almost a complete opposite. I felt very relaxed. I knew more of what I needed to do. Never felt that I had any kind of brain burn. The first game, because I had back-to-back turns a lot, I had kind of a analysis paralysis, and that's not typical of me. Anybody that plays games with me knows I'm more of a, hey, it's my turn, boom, I'm making my turn. The second game, I was more like that. I didn't feel like I was leaving anything. I kind of knew what things to look for, and enjoyed it a lot more that second play. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking forward to playing with 3 and 4 players to see how that, again, changes the dynamic. 2-player game, it's a good game. I think in a 3 or 4-player game, it's going to be a lot different. You guys have probably played it with more than 2, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. So I'm teeing that up. So, Dave, what do you think?
All right. Well, I've played the game twice as well so far. I've played it once 3-player and once 4-player. Honestly, I've read the 2-player rules. I don't know if I want to play the game 2 players, because actually what you're trying to do is mimic a 4-player game, taking the 2 turns in a row. And my impression with this game is I actually like it more with more people, because Tim, you made some great points. This game, you are having to pay attention to what's going on and looking to make sure that you're not setting your opponent up for a really, really good move. Now, the first game that we played, we kind of stumbled through the first few rounds, because what happened was we were trying to pay attention, but one of the guys that I was playing with, when he moved to an island, I think the first 2 turns, he took the culture tokens and built, which that turned into he ended up winning the game because he had a significant advantage, because he had turns where he's clearing off culture tokens, and then he could recruit the specialists and stuff like that. And the game was very good. The second game we rectified that issue, and we made sure that we played properly. But I will say this though, the big thing is a lot of people compare it to 5 Tribes, and there are some similarities which I'll talk about in a minute. But this one, the flow of the game is what I don't know if I like it or I don't like it, because I am another person who, when it's my turn, I take a turn, boom, I'm done. And I've played games with both of you guys, so you know that I'm not one that's going to be staring at the board trying to figure out making a move and trying to do all these figuring things out. This game, I find myself looking at the board going, oh man, what am I going to do? What can I do? There was one time I wanted to build, and it was right towards the end of the game. I was all set up to build a 6-point building, and I needed a black ship. There were none left, and I'm like, you serious? And the boat tile that I took didn't allow me to swap things around. Otherwise, that would have been pretty good for myself, but that didn't work out well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the gameplay, but I did want to talk about the production value. And, one of the things right beforehand, I looked up to see who the artist was, and the artist for Yamatai also did the artwork for the games Histrio and Oceanos. And both of those have really, really cool artwork, really, really colorful, and this matches suit. Days of Wonder production value is very, very good. The insert is mostly functional. I think it could be a little bit deeper for holding the specialist tiles. So I think overall that went pretty well. But getting back into the gameplay, a lot of people will compare it to 5 Tribes. The games aren't even alike. Other than the fact that they're both kind of puzzly, and but they are their own animals. This one, when I played it, like I said, I played it twice. I actually prefer it with 4 players, and just because the element of this game is competing against other people's perception and observation skills is, I think, what drives this game, because you're placing ships out on the board, and you're looking to see what other people are doing and seeing where you can capitalize on what they've done. Overall, though, it didn't like grip me like some other games do. But still, I think it's a pretty good game that Bruno Cathala has designed as well. So, and overall, though, the gameplay itself is very, very simple. I mean, on your turn, you've got 2 things that you're going to do. You have to place a ship, or you have to take a tile. And you don't have to place a ship, but you have to take a tile. And then if you do place ships, your option is, are you going to build, or are you going to or if you don't play ships, you could hire a specialist if you have the tokens. Now, the specialists are a mixed bag. Some are more powerful than others, but they are definitely useful, and you cannot ignore them in the game. So those are just some initial things to kind of cue up this conversation a little bit more. So let's hear what Tim the Elephant has to say.
It's boring. It is boring. It's a snore fest. There's nothing exciting about this game other than looking at the beautiful artwork. The board is gorgeous. The components are gorgeous. Dave, you said it's a pretty good game by Bruno Cathala. There's pretty good games are a dime a dozen nowadays. So what separates this pretty good game from another pretty good game? And that's what I guess I look for nowadays. I need something that's going to distinguish it. I know a lot of times I keep hearing that it's comparable to Five Tribes. I don't think they're much alike. And the reason I say that is because with Five Tribes, I mean, it's all depends upon moving the tribes around to be able to gain the action, and each tribe is different, whereas, you know, each one of the boats just represents a common resource that we see in every typical game that uses resources. I'm shocked it took 2 hours on your first game, Dad, but at the same time I'm not, because this game is extremely AP prone, and that's another turnoff to me. I'm really bored of games that I have to sit there forever waiting for my opponent to take their turn. And to me, I literally had a game where I was waiting for Carmen easily 20 minutes to decide, because she had a back-to-back turn to do because it was a 2-player game. I waited 20 minutes for her to take her turn, and I remember I finally told her there at the end, I don't care who wins, please just go, because I'm just so over even wanting to play the game. It was that long. The specialist, especially in a, let me make sure I enunciate this correctly. The specialists, especially in a 2-player game, feel way too important and overpowered. A couple of them, the one that doubles the prestige points, and then the other one that gives you a victory point based upon every 3 golds you have in versus 5, feel a little way too unbalanced compared to some of the other ones. Like I said, it is a beautiful looking game. I was really super excited to play this one. I did play it with 4 players. Once again, it fell flat to me. It didn't do anything. My game group really didn't care for it a whole lot either. Ultimately, I just wasn't real impressed with this one. And you got to understand, this is coming from somebody who thinks Bruno Cathala is probably the best designer currently in the market. You know, he's Cyclades, 5 Tribes, Mission to Mars. This guy has done, I'm sorry, is that right, Mission to Mars? Mission Red Planet, right?
Yeah, Mission Red Planet.
Thank you. The guy has done a lot of variety games, a lot of awesome looking games, and games that just to me have appealed to my taste. And he's a guy that I really look forward to. Whenever I see that he's designed a game, I want to try it. I played this one and I just immediately felt that I just was not really like blown away like I was with some of the other games. I'll digress for a bit and let you talk.
You know what? I share that feeling about not being. You know, I'm impressed by the game, but I wasn't like enthralled by it. I think that there's other Bruno Cathala designs out there that are much better. And you know, and I think, you know, Tim, you and I, we've talked on the phone about stuff, and I've mentioned to you about Bruno Cathala. Probably, I'm impressed by his breadth of designs that he can do. He can do different things, like, for example, you mentioned Mission Red Planet. That's a game that, you know, it's action selection, but there's a lot more. Take that, and it's almost like what people would call like an Ameritrash type game, opposed to 5 Tribes, which is a complete Euro game. And he's done different things in between. He's done Cyclades. He's done King Domino, which is up for the nomination for the Spiel des Jahres, you know, and that's a really, really good one. And this one, you know, it's very puzzly, and it's, you know, it's certainly not going to be for everyone. It is AP prone, and you know, I remember when I asked you got a chance to play it before I did, and I said, "Oh, I don't know if this game's really going to be AP prone." And you're like, "Have you played this?" And you told me that story about Carmen, you know, with the 25 minutes. And you're like, "I'm going to go order some food, have a pizza, take a shower, and come back, and maybe your turn will be done." But you know, but you know, the game, like I said, I found it interesting. But you know, the funny thing is, we played this one last Friday night. This was the kickoff game that we played for a gaming night, and we followed it up with Sentient from Renegade, which we, you know, I talked about the games that we were playing, and both of them had this brain burny feel going on because you're paying attention, you're trying to figure out things you're going to do. I mean, obviously the objectives are different, but after playing both of those games, we're like, oh, Sentient is way better than Yamatai, and you know, that's at the end of the day, this one is gonna stick around for a little bit, but I don't really know if it's gonna have the staying power to stay in my collection for a long time.
Yeah, Tim, you mentioned a good point about. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was now, but basically, it trying to be the two-player trying to mimic a four-player game. That I think causes a lot of problems in games because you, like I said, you do look at using one turn to set up another turn, and because of that, it's going to burn your brain more. I don't really get enjoyment out of burning my brain out on games. I play games for enjoyment and relaxation. I wish there were better ways that designers could come up with making a two-player variant instead of, like I said, trying to mimic a four-player. But like I said, I'm still waiting to play it as a 3- and 4-player game before I kind of pass my final judgment on it. My 2 games that I've played so far, like I said, the first one did take 2 hours. The second one was almost cut in half. I think we finished up in like an hour and 15 minutes. Because it was just boom, boom, boom. We knew exactly what we were going to be doing. So I'm looking forward to playing this with some more people. And with my game group in general, we have a few that are AP prone. You guys have played games with both of them, so I'm not going to mention any names. So I'm curious to see how they approach this.
Yeah, like I said, with the AP prone, my gaming group for the most part. The heck is that? Oh yeah, he does have. We'll let Tim get to his thoughts about that in a moment. But we enjoyed playing. We enjoyed playing the game. It wasn't great, and I was really anticipating playing the game. There's certain elements that I like about it, but when Tim was holding up the thing and said, "Jag, just another game." Yeah, there's other games that pretty much can do a lot of similar feels and check off the same boxes. And when it comes down to it, those games are going to probably rule out. Are going to be the choice over this one. I guess I'll start off with my final thoughts on this one, and we'll come back around. This one, I was looking forward to playing it. I have enjoyed the plays so far. It's not a great game, but it's something that I enjoyed. I will continue to play it again if my gaming group wants to play it. But I don't really see this being like a stellar game, and I certainly don't see this being a nominee for the Kennerspiel. So it's fine for what it is. I guess if I were to rate it on the Board Game Geeks scale, I'd probably give it around a 7.
Dad?
Yeah, I need a couple more plays in order to get a good feel for it. Like I said, the first game, I felt like I liked it, but I didn't really know for sure. Second game, I liked it a lot more. So I'll check back and see how I feel in 2 or 3 more plays of it.
Yeah, I have played it 2-player several times. I've played it 4-player. Carmen liked it a lot better than I did. But Carmen likes games that basically she manipulates things and moves things around the board. That's more her style. It's just not mine anymore. I used to enjoy stuff like that when I first got into gaming, but your gaming tastes do change. So even though I 100% agree with Dave that this game is a 7, I would play it if somebody wanted me to play it with them, but it's not one that I would recommend or go out of my way to play. I had this in my collection. I ended up getting rid of it. It's no longer in my collection anymore because I just thought it was too boring, and I felt like there's just other games in my collection that if I was going to choose between Yamatai and one of the other ones, I would choose one of the other ones. Did we keep comparing it to 5 Tribes? Cool. Well, if I want to take Yamatai and 5 Tribes and say which one we want to play, I would pick 5 Tribes every single time. I love 5 Tribes. I think it's a phenomenal game. Unfortunately, Yamatai just didn't do anything for me. So, especially, I just want to make sure I really explain this well enough. In the 2-player game, there's really no way to try to come up with a strategy to really run away from your opponent well enough. And that, I think, is what frustrated me the most in the 2-player aspect of it, because everything you do, your opponent can somewhat just mimic and shadow you. Like you said, Dad, unless I'm taking turns back to back, Otherwise, you don't want to set up your opponent. You know, I'm putting down boats. Well, then now he's going to build, or maybe I'm grabbing the tokens that you know, grabbing a specialist. I mean, there's always a way that they can just counter and shadow exactly what you're doing, and that to me is just not real fun, because I just don't feel like there's a real strategy that I can go after other than, well, let's just toss it all up in the air and just play a game just to play a game. That's not enjoyable to me. That's the sign of a jag. You're muted. You're muted.
All right, that's a good point there, Tim. Sorry, I was like trying to keep it quiet. I got birds chirping in the background, but
I like
you know,
your birds.
oh, thanks. The
I
parakeets.
thought that was just your thinking music.
Oh, I wish it, I wish it was. Yeah, put on your thinking cap. So, anyway, so that's, you know, there's three different perspectives, three different thoughts on Yamatai. We're curious what you guys have to say about it. If you've played the game, what are your thoughts on it? This is our honest, straightforward opinions, our impressions. So we've got it where you've got one, like Tim the Dad is looking forward to some plays with a few more players to get his final thoughts on it. I haven't played 2-player. I don't want to play a 2-player. I do like the 3 and 4 players. It's gonna hang around in the collection for a while. We're gonna continue to play it for a little bit, maybe see how it gets better. You know, my second play, I thought the game was getting a little bit better. We'll see how things go, but I don't think that it's great. You know, it's not one of Bruno's best, but we're gonna continue to play it for now if I get it requested in our gaming group. And then obviously with Tim, the elephant is he's played it and it's no longer in his collection. So you've got three different takes on this one. But we're curious what you guys have to say. So as we're getting ready to wrap up this broadcast, we thank you for taking the time to watch with us. And really quickly, what do we got coming up on our channels? We'll start with Tim the Dad.
Okay, so this coming weekend, I will be publishing Megan and I's playthrough of Nerdy Inventions from Mayday Games, and then in a couple of weeks, got one of my Origins acquisitions, King Domino, that I'm actually going to be playing with my wife. So I've taught her the game. So those that want to see a little different take on dad versus daughter can see mom versus dad.
Whoa!
Did you get the promo castles then from Origins?
What?
I did, and of course I got the green one.
Oh, nice.
What are you talking about? Promo castles? I don't know nothing about this. I got to see this. What's a promo castle?
All right, let me dig it out.
I got to see this. Now I'm going to be jealous.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
jealous of me, Tim.
I'm always jealous of you.
Yeah, so Tim, I guess that for people who purchase King Domino at Origins and maybe at conventions, it's alternate art. So I'm going to be quiet so that it comes up on the screen.
Say something.
How's that look?
Oh, I want that so bad!
Envious now, buddy? Look at that. There's the backside.
Don't be surprised when we have game day next time that those don't disappear from your house.
No. The other one is a pink one. So I went with the green one.
I want the pink one too.
Yeah, you could play your John Mellencamp song with pink houses there, you know.
Pink houses, yeah.
So you guys are gonna have King Domino, awesome. I'm not sure what I'm gonna have coming up. I'm still working on trying to get some video stuff done. I was gonna work on some reviews this past weekend, but had an impromptu trip out of town. I do want to cover Sentient. I think that one's a blast to play. Maybe I'll try and bring it, film a playthrough at our gaming night. And I'm not really sure. I think I'm going to do something with Monopoly Gamer, although we already have a review posted on that one. But I've been enjoying that. So I think those two are going to be coming up. How about you, Mr. Elephant?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So I don't know if a lot of people know. In fact, I don't think a lot of people know. But we've got a group, a Facebook group right now. It's the Solo Legendary Gamers. I'm trying to find the actual name of the official group, and I could probably pull that up real quick, so I just did think about it. Anyways, the point of this group is that they are challenging us, Carmen and I. It is the Solo Board Gamers Legendary Group, okay? So I'm going to say it one more time. Solo Board Gamers Legendary Group. You guys can go check that out. So what they're doing is that they are coming up with a monthly challenge towards Carmen and I. They get to come up with the mastermind. They get to come up with the villain groups and the henchmen, and then the scheme, and also the scheme. And then Carmen and I get to counter by picking the 5 heroes to see if we can beat them. They're all voting together to come up with their top selections. So we're going to have that video coming up. Just like you, Dad, I'm thinking about doing another video on King Domino as well. I would like to do the 7x7 grid instead of the 5x5 because I like that game quite a bit. Last but not least, we are going to do a rematch of Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. Carmen won the first game, but I do believe that she cheated, and God spoke to me last night in a dream, and he told me that I must challenge her again and to take my rightful place. You know, we'll just leave it at that.
You weren't met by like a 900-foot Jesus that came and said you need to play this game again. Otherwise, you know, you're going to lose all of your money in your bank account, right?
It was a Nigerian prince.
I think you need to cut back on drinking that dragon's milk. It's affecting your dreams.
That's great. One last thing, just to wrap it up. Just want to tell you guys, just chill out. Just accept that we're going to have a busy Gen Con. It is the 50th anniversary. It is what it is. And, you know, just wait till we get there before you guys all decide to complain. So, and that's it for me.
Sophie says hi.
All right, and I guess I'm going to echo what Tim said. You know, just we're looking forward to Gen Con. I think we're probably going to have another episode, probably maybe even 2 before Gen Con. We'll have to see how things go. Maybe we'll talk about some of our most anticipated games. We got a couple things coming up though too.
Shark Island.
That is my #1 most anticipated game for Gen Con at this point. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything with the shark, if you're playing the shark, you get to spread terror. That's awesome. But anyways, make sure that you check, subscribe to the channel, check our you know, on our own channels as well. I'll have the links in the show notes. You'll be able to see that. But just keep track of when we're going to have our next episode. Probably going to be in 2 weeks. So far, it seems to be working on these Tuesdays. So we'll see what happens. But this is Dave saying we'll see you later. And the other 2 guys, you can go ahead and say goodbye, and then we're going to call it quits.
All right, this is Tim the Dad saying, catch you guys next time.
This is the Elephant saying, I'm signing off. See you guys on the flip side.
All right, and take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.